Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. Now, I've been very excited about today's piece of content. Really excited because it's certainly been a huge nostalgia hit for me. And I think over the last maybe 5 or 6 years I've done a lot of reflecting on me growing up. And when I was young, I grew up, there was my brother, there was myself and my mum and dad. We lived in the Staffordshire Moorlands, or the Kingdom of the Moorlands, as you know I like to refer to it. And it was quite an idyllic kind of, you know, lifestyle. We lived in the middle of the countryside. Behind my mum and dad's house was just naught but fields and forests. It was like an Enid Blyton novel, because we were out, I don't know, climbing trees, building bases, all of that sort of stuff. But I've thought about certain things that I carry today, and it makes sense again on this kind of reflection of looking back then and the stuff that I carry today. So what I thought I'd do is I try and see if I could find all of the things from the 80s and see what the equivalent is nowadays. Now some of them are actually spot on. They really haven't changed in 30 years, which I just find amazing, the fact that they've stood the test of time like that. Some of the things I've not been able to find the originals again, so I mean my memory is terrible. I know I certainly struggle with my dyslexia trying to work out what are actual memories, what are photographs that I've pieced together for memories. I know that some of the things that I had back then, because you know we were a working class family, both parents were teachers, but even my dad had to take on 2 additional jobs to help to, you know, just to pay for things. It was a very tough time in the 80s, but also an absolutely amazing time. It was very simple. You wanted to have fun, you had to go out to have fun. There was less to kind of entertain yourself that way in the house. But yeah, so some of the things, because we certainly couldn't afford them, they were knockoffs, let's say. But yeah, I've been able to find some of those again, so yeah, it's been amazing. Now what I'll do is, as I usually do, let's turn the camera around so we can take a closer look whilst I'm doing that. If you do enjoy this at any point, please feel free to hit like, subscribe and share. If you're born in the 80s, let's hear down below, how did you like the 80s? And yeah, what an absolutely amazing decade. Extra little note is I do think some of these items may have crossed between the 80s and the 90s. So if you see something in here that you think, nah, that couldn't have happened, they didn't come out until 92 or I don't know, whenever, then I apologise in advance for getting my dates mixed up. But I was born 79, so 80 to 89 was kind of 1 up to 10. And then I went to high school 90 to 95, so some of those things may be early high school. Anyway, I'm waffling now, so let's take a closer look at what I have. Now if you've spent any time looking at my content here on Moorlander EDC, there's probably 2 things that you'll have learned about me so far, and that is that I love watches and I love backpacks. And again, through that reflection, I've kind of realised why. Growing up in the Moorlands, if it was the weekend, if I wasn't out on my skateboard or doing something like that, then my mum would just give me and my brother some food. We'd put it in a backpack, and that was generally our school bag. So whatever we went to school with at the weekend, that real perfect crossover bag, we'd have food in there, and we'd go out into the Moorlands. Now, before my mum would send me out, she'd give me her wristwatch. Now I know at the time she had, I think it was a Timex, a proper one that you had to wind with a Snoopy in it. But my first wristwatch was very similar to this. I don't think it was a Casio F91W, however it was very similar to this, mainly because again, you know, at the time we certainly couldn't afford one of these. But getting one of these and putting it on my wrist, it's crazy how it takes me back straight to the 80s. And you can tell this is why this one timepiece has genuinely stood the test of time. It's incredibly simple. shows you everything that you need. You can also change between 24 and 12 hours. And yeah, it's all plastic. When you flick through the options, you've got your normal time, you've got your alarms, there's a stopwatch on there, and then bizarrely they used to go from there to adjust time, so you genuinely could accidentally adjust your time by accident. But yeah, absolutely amazing watches. But my mum would give me her watch when I was old enough and I had my own watch. I'd know if I needed to be back at home by tea time, let's say it was 4 o'clock, I could walk for 2 hours. Me and my brother would walk for 2 hours, and we'd know that we'd then have 2 hours to get back as well. So that was the first one. But ever since then, I've almost had this strange, it's certainly not an anxiety thing, but if I go out without a watch, I feel naked. I feel I can't tell the time, I don't know what's going on and all this sort of stuff. And I think that comes from when, you know, when I used to go for a walk, if I went for a walk without a watch on, we'd have to make sure that we were close enough so that when my old man opened the back door and shouted tea time, that we'd be able to hear him and come running as well. Now the second one is this on my back. So this is a JANSPORT backpack. I'm reasonably sure it was this one. So this is their classic one. My mum, through the 70s, I think it was, she went and did Camp America, so she had a friend out there, our Auntie Penny. If you're from the UK, I don't know, do you do this around the rest of the world? So generally we have this kind of strange tradition that your parents' friends, even though they're not necessarily your actual auntie, you kind of call them auntie. So our Auntie Penny used to send us things from the US. And it was really strange because, you know, we get these JANSPORT bags, and every now and maybe we get like a Converse or an Eastpak. And growing up in the 80s, going to school, everybody had, I think it was Head, I'm sure it was Head. They make bags for like tennis and squash, that sort of stuff. But yeah, so we'd have these, and people are like, JANSPORT? Who the hell's JANSPORT? And we're like, I don't know, Auntie Penny gives them from America. But this, again, straight away, massive nostalgia hit. Super simple bag. It's just got that one main compartment. It's got your zipper on the front so you can fit extra things in there. It doesn't really kind of overcomplicate things with like a back panel. It's maybe got a bit of foam in there that's 5mm thick. The straps are just kind of average, but when you've got it on, at the end of the day, it fits. And my daughter Adelheid has now started to use this for school, which again I think is really cool. The fact that she's using this, for her it's like, oh Dad, yeah, super retro, and I'm like, yeah, totally retro. Now the rest of the things that are in here are certainly things that I used to carry to go on my daily adventures. One of them, so I put in my wired headphones just to remind me. But I think it was either my 8th or 9th birthday, and the one thing that I always wanted was a Walkman. But you know, we couldn't afford a Walkman, and I think it was a Philips one. I'll put the photo here. This is the one that I think I found that I think it was. But fast forward 30-40 years, and we've all got mobile phones in our pockets nowadays. These are that advanced that we can just do so much with them. I remember watching Star Trek Next Generation kind of at the beginning of the 90s, and they got these little data pads, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And then fast forward 20-25 years from them, and we have them. They are now, and they're living. I use the Google Pixel 6. I really like this. It's a great phone. It does everything that it needs to do, and the battery life on this is absolutely amazing. They've worked some magic being able to use their own processor in here, and they've also worked some magic on understanding which apps you use more than others. So it does a great job of being able to conserve your battery. I can easily get 2 days worth, maybe 2.5 days worth of battery out of this, and I still rock old school wired headphones, mainly because, well, you just never need to charge them. So that's my Walkman. I mean, I don't have one. I'm sure you could possibly find one nowadays, but I think being able to find a cassette tape Walkman would be really hard. A similar item that I asked for my birthday was a torch. Back then I was like, owning a torch is such a cool thing, and I found this Energizer flashlight, which is so similar. Now nowadays they have LEDs in there, so that it's a lot brighter, it's a lot more clearer. The reflector in there is an orange peel reflector, which does a great job of dispersing the light. I think this is a grand total of 50 lumens, but it's super simple. It's completely made of plastic. I think even the lens is plastic. It's just got an on and off, and then randomly it's got this little magnet in the back, so maybe if you needed to put this on top of your car or stick it to something. I think back in the day, and this is a running joke, everybody knows this, but kids nowadays think they have it tough. I held the flashlight for my dad when I was young. I remember him underneath the car, effing and jeffing like a sailor, and he asked me if I could hold the flashlight. But this would have saved. I mean, in fairness, I learned a lot from my dad about as far as swear words were back then. But yeah, just to have something you could poke in somewhere. But there you go. This is so like the torch that I had back then. Now I didn't actually mean to put this in here because I didn't really have a wallet, especially around that age. And this is actually my daughter's. This is Adelaide's wallet, but I had to put this in because this is exactly the same as the wallet. My first ever wallet that I had was a WWF wallet, and it had all of the wrestlers on it. I think it had got WWF on one side, and then it had got like SummerSlam or something like that on it. But it's the same as these, you know. It's a classic Velcro wallet with all of your little different bits and compartments in there, and the cash bit on the back. I still do love wallets. I think maybe it's more around the minimalism side, but these things are awesome. And it's great again to see that these really have stood the test of time because they're just so simple and easy to make. Now the other items are in here, and I'm just going to check that there's nothing in this front compartment. No, there isn't, so let me just open this one up. One of the things that I always took everywhere with me was a FRISBEE. So this is an OG classic FRISBEE, and it pretty much is exactly the same as the one that I had when I was young. I think a lot of the FRISBEEs that I did have were probably ones when we went to the beach and it was just a no-name copy of a FRISBEE. I don't think I ever owned a genuine FRISBEE, so to be able to pick one up nowadays, it's always something that I've wanted. I've always enjoyed playing FRISBEE. I've always enjoyed certainly throwing these around with my daughters. So being able to find the original ones from way back when, I think it's great that they continue to make these original ones. But since then, I know I've certainly looked at other different kind of throwing discs. So the main one that I use with my daughters now is this AEROBIE one. It's called the AEROBIE SUPERDISC. It's plastic at the top, but then round the edges you have this rubbery TPU bit. Being able to get a good purchase on that to get a good flick, and same that way, it's actually really good, and I think this flies better than the classic FRISBEE. Also, when you're playing with kids and they're getting used to it, being hit by the OG FRISBEE across your nose, that's where you learn actions and consequences, or lack of actions. You need to catch that, whereas this thing, when it hits your kids in the face, it certainly doesn't smart as much. One of the things that I always wanted way back when was the original kind of AEROBIE disc. There was an advert where they were like, this is the furthest, always with a cheesy American accent, this is the furthest thing that you can throw. And there was somebody, and there was like posts. I don't know whether they were 5 meters apart or 10 meters, or whether it was even just a meter apart. But they did the whole, this is broke the world record on the farthest throw. But at the time, you know, we simply couldn't afford one of these. It was always cheap frisbees, no-name kind of frisbees that we'd pick up when we went to the beach. So, silly little things. Fast forward 30 years, being able to purchase one of these or have the spare cash that I can get one of these. Big nostalgia hit, but also kind of cool that, you know, later on in life I was able to pick one up. Another thing in here that I certainly used to use, especially when it came to just going down into the fields, trying to hit fence posts and all of that sort of stuff, is inside here. So we used to take a slingshot with us, or a catapult. I have two here, so these are from SLINGSHOT. So this is probably the closest to the one that I had when I was young. Certainly wasn't this advanced, definitely wasn't this advanced, and I think even it was one with tubular rubber elasticy bits. It hurt like hell when it hit you on the wrist, and so do these, but this is possibly the closest or very similar to the one that I had back then. Now I think this is part of my memory, trying to remember things, and that's how memory works, but I certainly don't think it was advanced as this. It might even just be a really crappy toy one with elastic bands on there. Sorry, I was holding that the wrong way. But these are great. I'm not going to pull it too far back. I know I've got eye pro on, but it's just my normal glasses. But the kind of the hit that you can get with these is absolutely amazing. Now I did also treat myself, and this is from QUEENEY'S CATAPULTS. So this is a handmade one, and this is absolutely stunning. I bought this 2, maybe 3 years ago from the main man himself. I think this is one of his that I'd asked him about, and he said he was happy for me to buy. I've even still managed to keep the same elastic on it, but whenever I'm out, if I'm out filming on a Sunday or during the week, especially if I'm out in the woods, then I'll take this with me and just have a, you know, just have a few little shots against things. It's a lot easier to do this nowadays as well. I do have some, I think these are 9mm ball bearings, but I don't tend to use these as much, mainly because if I lose them, then I've just got to buy more. Whereas I tend to use these instead. So these are those compacted earth ones. And instead it's just like a ball bearing but brown, and it's made from earth. If you crush this, it'll just kind of fall apart in your hand. So when you're shooting these at trees or trying to find a fence post and see how far you can keep walking backwards and still being able to hit it, it's great for that, mainly because what's been left on the floor within a week, maybe a month, will just completely erode away, and it is just dirt. It's just compacted dirt. The last few things in here, I know certainly probably went towards the end of the 80s, and I probably should have checked maybe a little bit closer with this, but so I got into gaming. My mum and dad bought me and my brother, we had an NES for Christmas. And that was the first year that I really got into gaming. Then later on, I remember buying, so I must have been at high school, so it probably was the beginning of the 90s. But I got into handheld gaming, which I had the original Game Boy, and that thing was amazing. It's very hard to get those nowadays. The closest thing really would be the Switch, but the fact that I do so much on my mobile phone made complete sense that I use one of these 8BitDo. I believe it's called 8BitDo or 8BitDo. It looks like a classic Nintendo style. I think it was the Famicom, these colours. So Nintendo, 8BitDo, it makes sense that it's 8BitDo. But this has got options on here so that you can connect it either to a PC, you can connect it to a Switch, you can connect it to, I'm trying to think what the other ones are, Android, and I think you can connect this to an iPhone as well, and just play some classic games whilst you're out and about. yes, you have to put your phone down on something whilst you're using it, but being able to continue to game whilst using your mobile phone whilst you're out, absolutely amazing. And these things are brilliant, they really are good, especially if you're on site, stuck in a hotel room knowing that you've got 6 hours to kill, thinking what am I going to do. Connect this bad boy up and just, yeah, play some Dead Cells for a bit instead. And the last one on here, oh no, there is a second one after this. So because I was into gaming a lot, but I was also a massive comic geek, a huge comic, still am. I think it's great that the MCU is at a certain position now, because my friends are like, oh my god, who's this? I'm like, well, let me tell you who that is. And it was always reading comics. Now comics haven't changed, you can still buy print media. A lot of people will tell you print media is dead, and to some extent I think it is. It's nice to be able to go and pick up a comic, to feel it. It's got a certain smell about it. But for the last 10 years, I've gone digital. So this is my Amazon Fire 8. On this, I have I think it's called the Perfect Viewer. And then with the Perfect Viewer, I can download comics through CBR files or CBZ files, and I can read them all on this. And it's brilliant because I can take a whole series of 1,000 comics with me, all stored on here. And I sound a bit of a, oh my god, it's amazing, there's all this stuff on a piece of technology. I sound like an absolute boomer. I kind of am, yeah, stuff it. I do sound like a boomer, maybe because probably I am a little bit, but being able to have this with me, go read, put it down, kind of, same as a comic. I still look after my comics. I've still got hundreds of them up in the loft that are in plastic cellophane bags so that they don't get damaged. But having them on this means that I don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. I think the Amazon Fire tablets are very good as well. They've got reasonably good specs. You're not going to be doing a lot of massive gaming on this, but some of them you certainly can do. But I think for the price range, especially when you ones, and I know some of them you can get a little bit cheaper if you have the ones with adverts, but the adverts aren't intrusive. I certainly don't feel like I'm being advertised to. But yeah, this is my new comic book. Now this definitely is the last thing, and this is something I used to take everywhere with me. I've mentioned it already 2 or 3 times, and I think if you follow me on Instagram, there's the name, then you might have seen me out and about on this. But I had a BMX. I used to go out on the BMX quite a bit, but I'd always find that I've got a puncture, or if we go and see friends, if we go and see my nan, I couldn't take my BMX with me. Instead, back then, it was all about the banana boards. Now the banana boards were the plastic ones, and I tried to see if the actual OG banana boards were still around. I just simply couldn't find them. But I think companies like Penny Board really have took up that mantle to take those old school classic skateboards. The big difference with this one is, rather than being the Penny board, this is the NICKLE board. So this is the 27-inch one, which, fast forward 30 years on, the size that I am now, being able to use the NICKLE board is actually really good, because it's roughly the same dimensions as my banana board was back then. And by banana board, it wasn't an OG banana board. It was one that, you know, but my mum and dad would have picked up from Quick Save or somewhere like that. But for all intents and purposes, while we were cruising around the streets, it was a banana board. That kind of reflection that I've done recently, where I've been thinking about, you know, different things in life. Just keep doing things that make you feel young. I think that's a great thing to live by. And just going out with this, finding some pavement. There's a good stretch of maybe 2 kilometers that is super smooth, super flat. When you're coming back, there's a slight downhill, not too fast. If I fall off, I'm not really going to hurt myself too much. Yeah, absolutely amazing. The one thing that really surprised me about these, and this is coming from the fact that I've not got on a skateboard for 30 years, is the wheels. So I mean the bearings in these are a hell of a lot better than they used to be. The bearings really used to rattle. But whatever the composite material is that they make the wheels out of, the wheels back then literally just solid plastic. So you'd feel everything through your wheels. Carving was really difficult because your back end, your front end would always slide out, but these are super grippy, and getting back onto this, it was really strange. Yeah, it's a different feeling, different kinetic feeling through the floor, but yeah, I really enjoy kind of getting back on this. So yeah, penny boards. Who'd have thought after all this time, after 30 years getting out and just doing a little bit of skateboarding. So there's quite a bit there, and I didn't pull anything out in any certain order, but it's actually been really fun looking back, seeing the sort of stuff that I used to get up to then, and being able to try and find the modern day equivalents of those things, like the Casio, what was it, the Casio F91W really hasn't changed, although Penny have picked these up, and there's lots of other companies that are making these now. It's scary just how close they are to the originals. The JANSPORT backpack, I mean, I might as well have just picked up the same one, same as my FRISBEE, exactly the same as it was back then, and yeah, real nostalgia hit. Now, where are you in the world? And put something down in the comments. I'd love to hear the sort of stuff that you got up to when you were in the 80s or maybe the 90s or whenever, you know. What's the thing that you really remember? Or maybe even if, like I've said with my watch and my backpack, I know why everywhere I go I carry a backpack or I have a watch with me. What's that thing that after some reflection you've gone, do you know what, that makes sense? Yeah, I always used to take that everywhere with me when I was a kid, and yeah, that actually makes a little bit more sense now. Yeah, indulge in some self-reflection. Why the hell not? I'm sure I can find links for these. I'll leave some links in the description if you did want to check any of these out. But yeah, the 80s were an absolutely amazing decade. If you managed to get through them, you managed to get through them safe, unscathed and semi-alive, then good on you. I believe statistically none of us should have survived the 80s, which is yeah, always a good thing. But hey, follow me on Instagram. I'll leave that there. I'll mention I'll see if I can find some of the links. But for now, stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC. Is that 24 minutes? Oh, was I in focus? Well, that's tough shit. If I wasn't, I'm not going to do all of that again. Tough shit. Oh. Hi. How are you? If you're a time traveller and you've just got back from the 1980s, cowbunga, dude. Yeah, cowbunga. Hi. I'm plugged in. Let's check. Plugged in. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. To test tickles, I said, not to testicles. It's a tickle me Elmo joke, isn't it? Shoot. Hi. I'm the Moorlander, and this is Moorlander EDC. Now, I have to say that I've actually been quite excited